Are you a woman or non-binary person in the LGBTQIA+ community who is new to the world of online dating? Maybe you've come out later in life and you want to meet someone special, but you aren't sure how to navigate dating apps. Or maybe you're a seasoned online dater who wants to create a compelling dating profile and get better results. Lavender Dating is a 6-week support program for any woman who identifies as LGBTQIA+, designed to help you define your dating goals and create a dating profile that people will want to stop and read. We'll help you learn how to start conversations and keep them going, help you to handle the common pitfalls of dating, such as phishing or ghosting, cover red and green flags to watch for in a potential love interest, and much more. Our next group coaching session starts Monday, November 4th, 7 p.m. Central Time on Zoom. Individual coaching sessions are available too. Sign up today at www.lavenderdating.com. That's lavenderdating.com.
Hey queer friends, are you ready to be inspired? Welcome to Season 5 of Coming Out and Beyond, a podcast that shares stories from the LGBTQIA+ community. Here's your host, Anne-Marie Zanzal.
So, are you a later in life LGBTQIA+ person? I am, and my guest on the show today, Annie M. Henderson, is as well. And we're here to talk about today is how this journey can look different for all of us. As we all know, many of us are recovering people pleasers, and sometimes we think that our late in life journey needs to look like our friend who's coming out later in life, or maybe Annie's journey that you watch on social media, but it doesn't. So we're going to try to help you to get to the most authentic place for your particular journey today. So I'm really pleased to welcome to Coming Out and Beyond Annie M. Henderson. She is an author and certified professional life coach dedicated to helping women achieve their goals. With 2 decades of experience in education and mental health, Annie has become a respected expert in her field. Her education has been the foundation for her successful career, allowing her to provide insightful guidance and support to her clients. She holds a bachelor's degree in psychology and multiple master's degree in education, schools counseling, and professional counseling. Annie is the author of Later in Life, Lesbian, and also Women with ADHD, which helps provide strategies, confronts myths and stigma, and provides an interactive journey for the reader to dive deeper. As a personal trainer for the mind, Annie teaches tools and strategies to help clients calm their nervous system and manage their thoughts so they can confidently set boundaries, overcome fear, exhaustion, and people-pleasing. Her latest dual certification to help her clients is in RIM and generational healing. Annie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm super excited. Now I'm going to let everyone know that I'm a fan of Annie and her content. She's got great content out there. And I was really intrigued by a lot of the things she says in her social media content really hits home for me, and also what I'm trying to teach other people. So thank you, Annie, for putting out such amazing content. I appreciate that.
I'm honored that it even finds you.
Well, algorithms, right?
Yes.
So Annie, I'm going to ask you the first question I ask everybody on this show. Tell me your story.
All right. So, how far back to go? So I'll start with this because my kiddo has taught me so much. So much in so many ways. It's such I'm just wowed by her. Anyways, she taught me the phrase demisexual, which explains a lot to me. So my wife, she's someone that knew when she was 5 years old, like, yes, I am. But she grew up in Mississippi. So it was also like, I am and I cannot be. So we're just going to be quiet about that. And then I was just living my life, playing sports, growing up in North Texas. There's no representation. It's just a lot of comp het. There's
So I have
one.
Were you near East Texas? Because I know East Texas is incredibly compact. I mean, can you help me with the geography?
Yeah. I'm in Northeast, so about an hour
Okay.
north of Dallas and like 10 minutes from Oklahoma.
Okay. So super conservative.
It's pretty conservative. And I have a lot of clients who the parents are way more Bible-y, way more conservative than my parents. So I kind of lucked out on that end. Yes, we did. I was raised Catholic. We were there, CCD on Wednesdays and church on Sundays.
Okay. What was it like growing up Catholic in Texas? That I have to hear too. So I was assuming Southern Baptist, non-denominational, Pentecostal, Church of Christ. I was assuming that.
Good
But like
gosh.
I haven't heard of too many Catholics growing up.
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Texas.
You know what? Like a lot of things with my family, it seemed more of a checking the box kind of attendance. Like we knew all our prayers, we attended. But I feel like, gosh, my mom was usually probably the most frustrated and probably anxious. Gosh, it took too long for this to finally just hit me. Like anxious on Sundays. But of course, that's when you go and you dress up and you go and walk amongst everybody. And I think there's just a lot of fear of judgment with my mom that was passed on. So yeah, I didn't know anything different until maybe I was older. And then, yeah, all my friends were Baptist. So I got to hang out with them. And then I met my boyfriend, future husband, and he went to a Pentecostal church. There it is for you. And that was, I mean, in terms of, I had a lot of friends, like some of my soccer teammates went there. So that was great. I loved hanging out with friends. And at the time, it was my brother had gone off to college and my parents had gotten divorced. And I think my mom was probably going through depression and menopause and a lot of heavy things. And it was just, I was happy to go to church, no matter where it was, and hang out with friends. So we did that. And I was already well into my people pleaser phase. So it was like a boyfriend would ask me out and I'd be like, okay. And then I would at some point get up the nerve to be like, okay, this is over. And then like the next one would ask immediately. So it was not really, I don't think I was single at all through high school.
Well, and if those of you who are listening, Annie's very cute. So that's why probably the boys were lining up. And you're fulfilling the heteronormative narrative. You had the boyfriends. It didn't sound like you were too interested in them. You just dated them, and
they asked.
Poor boys, okay. You tossed them aside.
And then the other one I met playing softball. So much now that I look back.
Softball's a gateway sport to lesbians.
Yeah, right.
Right.
But that's where I met him. And then he asked me to marry him at 19.
Wow.
And I was like
19?
I was 19.
Was he?
No, he was, I know. And of course, at the time I was like, oh, I know him. No, he was 22, maybe.
Oh, then so not that much older. He was
not that much.
Your age.
My kid likes to joke about it.
Yeah, because I have all the jokes. From my my mommy days, I have friends that like were 19 and 20 and married guys 32, 33.
Yeah,
and that's sort of, they're all divorced now, but but he was like appropriately aged for you.
Yeah, I think so. Although, like, if it was my kiddo now, I'd be like,
no way.
No. So, and what's interesting is I remember someone at our church that were engaged, and then they broke it off. And I remember, and I don't think I realized I was gay yet, but I was like, can you do that? No, that's not nice. That's not nice.
Oh,
You can't break
well,
that up.
because
Anyway, so that was like a
nice girls don't break up engagements.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Hmm.
oof, that's not nice.
Hmm.
So and then we, we had fun. I
Hmm.
remember thinking like, oh, and before I got married, I was like, I'm gonna go away to college, not away, but like an hour away to a great psych school. And he was like, no, I don't think that'll work like with us. And I was like, okay.
Hmm.
Okay. So I stayed and went to the local college, which is a great college. Go Roos. And uh yeah, and then I just went to college and more college and more college, and we were great friends. We loved to play
Hmm.
hockey and tennis and played all the sports. And um and we didn't fight. I was, part of what my people pleasing clients can relate to is that we avoid conflict.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like I know how to do it, and in my head it was, there's a lot less screaming than when I grew up, so I think I'm doing this right.
Hmm.
I remember like kind of checking in with other women, and I'm like, the sex, that's just not it, right? And I think
Right.
even the straight women were like, yeah. And I was like,
Well, and okay, so you've like said so much right now.
stop me at any time.
So I have noticed, I'm curious about your clientele as well. I tend to attract women that have a lot of degrees. And when
Yeah.
I was reading your bio, I'm like, how many master's degrees do you have in that degree? You know? Now, do you look back at that now as like you were searching for something? Because I often believe that a lot of times I got a master's degree in my 40s, and I was searching for something. And
Yeah.
so I was like, well, maybe I'll go back to school and this will fix whatever I'm searching for.
Hmm.
When you look back in your life in retrospect, do you think that your educational journey was you searching for something?
I think it could be a beautiful combination of both.
Yeah.
Like it was definitely
Mhm.
like the path I wanted, like yes, counseling, psychology. I wanted all that. The education was a just a bonus that got thrown
Okay.
in there.
Okay.
But I'm sure it was a distraction.
Hmm.
'Cause
Hmm.
I remember being married and, just going through the dinner routine and being like, is this
It
all it is on
is
repeat
this.
forever? Like
Mhm.
I cannot imagine. So I
I have
yeah.
a similar moment. I mean, I was married a lot longer than you did, my ex-husband. I was married 27 years, but I remember looking out the window when I was in that moment of that period of call it my fetal position phase of deciding, am I going to really go and like explore this?
Yeah.
Um, and I remember looking out, and we had a group of friends over. We were very good entertainers. We were well known in our community for having great parties and stuff like that. And he was outside cooking on the fire, and I looked out and I said, I don't think I can do this the rest of my life. He was perfectly content and happy. He would have
Oh,
done that.
yes.
And if
Oh,
I was
yes.
a straight woman, maybe I would have been. You know what I mean? I don't know because I don't know how straight women think,
Yeah.
but I wonder if I would have been. But I understand, like, that moment where you're standing in the kitchen or maybe, tucking kids into
Mhm.
bed or whatever. And all of a sudden it hits you is this life on repeat for the rest of my life? Right.
Uh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So how'd you figure out you were gay? You're trucking along. Do, 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 do.
Right? So
Yeah.
yeah, in my demisexual world where I did not like I didn't have a crush on any of my friends, any of my
Mm-hmm.
teammates. Like we had fun playing. I was just all about play. And I was a teacher, an
Mm-hmm.
elementary school teacher. Hey, teachers.
Somehow, when you told me you were used to be a first grade teacher, I was like, that's no surprise.
Yeah, right,
You've
right.
got the vibe going.
Gosh, I loved those little kiddos. And I never intended on being a teacher. I never wanted to be a teacher, but my school was offering a master's degree in it. I was like, okay, I can do that. It's a lot of that growing up. But my catalyst was at that school, and I was still completely oblivious for the longest. I was just like, oh, I have a new friend. Friends, this
Mhm.
is so fun. We can play some tennis and we can laugh. And it was clueless until she actually like made it extremely obvious and said something. And I was like, yeah, no, yeah, we're like, we're both married. That's like,
Mhm.
it's not
Okay,
even
so
an
she was
option.
married to a man. She wasn't
Yeah.
okay. All right.
Yep.
And you said you shut her down.
I attempted to.
Yeah.
For all of my for all of your listeners that tend to know the idea of setting a boundary, but then not holding a boundary. That
Well,
was
yeah, and also too, of course you said
yeah,
no. I
yeah,
mean,
right?
it didn't even occur to you. I mean, like, and also too, some people do say no at first to a catalyst,
Oh, for
or
sure.
they say no to a catalyst, and they don't end up with that catalyst ever, but it sends them on a journey
Oh,
of
yes.
self-exploration.
Oh,
You know,
yes.
a catalyst doesn't have to be
Yeah.
consummated, right? It can just be
Excellent.
someone who makes you,
Good
oh,
reminder.
yeah, remind, oh, I like girls. Yeah.
Yeah. What is this? New
Yeah.
thoughts. Yes. So, it wasn't a long-lived no.
Mhm.
So we continued to hang out, and a lot of a lot of my people pleasing clients are praised for their loyalty, right? Not always being there for others. So I was probably never going to be the person that was like, "Oh, this is not okay. This is inappropriate. This is my boundary. Like,
Mhm.
we can't hang out anymore." It was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, like I hope you receive my no and let's keep hanging out
Yeah.
and spending time together."
But do you think now, looking back, is that it was more subconscious why you kept like hanging out with her because it was
I'm
a part of
sure.
I mean, yes, it has to do with boundaries, but I always get when people have a relationship outside of their marriage when they're coming out, I I always have such compassion and grace for people because it's much more complicated than, having going to have sex with somebody, because you're bored
Yeah.
or because you're missing something in your marriage. It's about finding out who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there was a piece of you in there was like, I'm going to keep hanging out with her. I mean, you're not conscious.
Oh,
Thinking,
yeah,
I
yeah.
like being with her and this feels good in a
Oh, yeah. This feels
way
different and
that
good,
it
and
doesn't feel with my husband.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I totally agree because that's and especially, down in the Bible Belt, and
Mhm.
it's uh, and I've had so many different clients. So just how you started this episode of we can't compare our story to others.
Right, right, right.
Um, if I had not met my catalyst and move forward some with that, I probably would maybe not still be married. Hopefully not, but
Mhm.
it probably would have just gone on for a long time.
Well, my wife posed a really interesting question
Yeah.
to me once. She goes, "You may not have put up with everything that you put up with if you were straight."
Mm,
Even though it was not conscious. I mean, like, I'm one of those ones that sorta knew I was gay, you know? Um, but she said, "You may have, like, been like, 'No, this isn't working. I'm not in love.'" You would have known that, but,
yeah.
like, as somebody who was, confused about my sexual identity, though not consciously confused about it until probably 10 years before I came out, um, I was like, I think I put up with sometimes I want I'll never have the answers to this, but, maybe
Yes.
I understand, like, I understand because if I wasn't gay, I think I probably still would be with my ex-husband just because we had built a good life together. We have 4 beautiful
Oof.
children, all those things. I had done that.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
even though it wasn't great, but I was straight, but then it gets so confusing because all your straight friends, it's not great. Okay,
I
this is what
know.
it is. This is what
Par
I
for the
put up with.
course.
Yeah. So what
Yes.
I said something that intrigued you. You're going to say something.
Who knows what that was gonna be.
Okay. She went, "Oh," when I said
But
about yeah, go ahead.
yes, yes, yes. I do have, so if anybody is listening, the idea that I should be grateful, right?
Mhm.
I have the white picket fence. I have And that's the truth. I have so many clients, and even my own husband, were nice, great men.
Mhm.
And Anne-Marie, I kind of joke about this, but maybe you can run with it because I like to think of ideas and then I hope someone else. I'm like, we need to come out with a later in life lesbian dating apps for the husbands where the women are like, 5-star review for this husband. He's now available. Like, he's great. And I'm the wife and I've gone through coaching. Like,
And I'm also gay, so I have absolutely
I
no
will not be
interest in
coming
him
back for this man.
ever in my life. I don't have enough energy but for that. But you
Somebody
guys can
out
steal
there.
that idea. Steal that idea. It's yours.
Yes. Anyway,
Okay, so you met your catalyst.
met my catalyst.
And you kept, being friends with her.
Kept doing it. That first kiss, that was all the confirmation that I needed.
Wow.
I was like, oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting.
But not like, not big enough for me to be like, all right, see you later. Like I'm
I
out
get
of this
it.
marriage. It was like, yes, like there was like that inner gut and that intuition, that knowing of like, this is me. And now, flashing back all through your growing up years of this makes sense and this makes sense. But then the contrast of having your family and your church and your small town and
Yeah, I get all that.
like, oh, that cannot happen.
Yeah. So I understand that kiss. The first kiss I had was like, oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like. And I kissed plenty of boys. That was not the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
I was like, oh. And I remember the first time I slept with a woman, I literally felt my brain go click, click. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
this is what they talk about. And I was a skeptic before. So like many of us, though, you had that experience and you're like, nope, can't do anything about it, right?
Yeah.
Or so what happened? Like, I mean, like for me, it was years, but I'm curious about you.
You're curious about me. Yeah. So just to throw, one more example of a story so that everyone has all the possibilities. So we worked together. There was a lot of behind the scenes. We didn't I feel like such a child. We didn't go all the way until I was divorced. And of course, that begs the question of what is all the way with lesbians. But but it was I um oh gosh, became pregnant somewhere in the middle of all of
Wow.
this. Yeah.
Wow.
So I like to pretend that like, oh, like instead of like stress, I feel like my kiddo in the womb had so many like good, amazing, euphoric, like happiness, like, oh, this is kind of who I am, instead of the stress of like, oh, even though I was still through all of that. All of that being said, my catalyst, and I've rephrased this. Back in the day, I would say my catalyst was toxic, and now I am able to say like this
We
relationship
were
was
toxic. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not all her fault.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. And that's so many times in our lesbian community or the later in life community, people are like, oh, they were toxic. No, it's actually the two of them together probably were not a good fit. And
Yeah.
like, I hate when people throw the word narcissist around. Not
Yeah.
everybody's a narcissist.
Yeah.
Not everybody is. Before that, maybe back in the day, you probably remember this. They used to call everybody borderline.
Yep.
And it's now narcissist. And no, not everybody is. And I get that. Like a lot of times, our first relationship with somebody when we are coming out often mimics our first relationship. So what I mean by that is with men, is that a lot of times women pick out, they end up with somebody who's very similar to their spouses in a lot of ways, especially around trauma and stuff like that. I have found it very interesting. And I don't know if you have found this too. I've had a lot of clients who've had a very successful second marriage, and then they fall in love with a woman and the woman they're with is very much like their abusive first spouse. And I've seen that happen like 6 or 7 times. And
Yeah.
so I think about that a lot, and like, why does that happen? And we keep partnering with people that remind us of our primary caregivers, right? And so you guys had a toxic relationship. You both contributed to that, and I love that you said that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So then what?
So then we had like about a year break. So had my kiddo, just took a break, you know, raised my kiddo. And then what was beautiful about this time was I didn't have this pressure of like, oh, I need to make a move for you.
Right.
It was, you know, um, and I wasn't secure and had done enough work to be able to fully be honest with my ex at the time. And so the conversation went something like, this seems like we're just friends. So that's the approach. And then, you know, and he was like, can we try until our our next anniversary? And I was like, sure.
But
I was
it's
like, sure,
also
sure.
yeah, that's like such an arbitrary, like,
I
why?
know, I know. I was like, but for me, I was like, I see the light at the end of the, like,
Oh, wow.
6 months is nothing. Like I can,
Yeah.
yes. And that was just like, whoa. And actually at first he was like, you know, okay. And I think he went to talk to his parents, and I think his parents were like, fight for that girl. So he came back and then he had a new idea, and I was like, okay, that's fine. I
Yeah.
can do this. I've done
Can
7 years. I can keep going.
Can I ask you something? A lot
Yeah.
of times I get a lot of women that come that their catalyst is birth,
Yeah.
whether it is getting pregnant or
Mhm.
having their baby.
Mm.
Because as we know, a catalyst can be a human. You can fall in love with somebody, but
Yeah.
a lot of times it can be a catalytic event, a
Yeah.
divorce. I have had a lot of clients that either are pregnant, have just given birth, or somewhere within the first 5 years of their child's life.
Yeah.
When you look back at it, do you believe your son was another catalyst for your coming out?
My daughter,
Oh, it's okay, daughter. I'm sorry.
she
Annie, do you have 1 or 2 kids? I'm
I don't
confused.
that's a great question. I don't know what I said earlier. Did I say Sam?
Yeah, and then
Sam's
you
my
said,
wife.
oh, well, okay. Yeah. So one
Sage,
daughter.
one
Okay.
daughter, and then I was a gestational carrier. So if you ever hear me talking about twins or something like that, our first our first year of dating involved me being a gestational carrier and carrying twins.
Okay.
So
Got it.
it can get confusing. I get it.
Okay. Okay. So you have a daughter,
Yes.
so with the birth of your daughter, do you believe she was a catalyst too for you moving forward in
I
this?
I think so. I don't know if it was you know what? I think my daughter was more of a catalyst later on
Mm-hmm.
of I got to get out of this people pleasing so I don't raise her to be like me. So that was a huge thing for me, and just being okay with myself, and yes, that whole process. Um but no, I don't see it for me as she was my catalyst. It was definitely that woman.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you had your daughter and you realized that, okay, I can't stay married anymore. And eventually you and your spouse got divorced.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
And were you single when you got divorced, or were you seeing
Yes.
anyone? Yeah.
No, no. But this being a teacher, we're off.
Mhm.
So we had this talk in like early spring, and yeah, I was single, wasn't seeing anybody. It was just raising my daughter and being married and being a teacher. And then going into the summer, and then so our anniversary was August.
I
So
gotta
right
ask
around the
you.
time,
I gotta ask you when.
huh? Oh, August
Yeah.
18th.
I was the 12th.
um So school starting back. So I got to go up to my catalyst and being like, I'm getting a divorce.
Now, had she gotten divorced?
No, she didn't. And she didn't for maybe a couple more years.
Oh, wow.
It ended before she did.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah. And again,
Did you consider yourself gay at that point?
oh yeah.
Or
Yeah.
demisexual? Okay, you did.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think as soon as that kiss happened, I'm like, oh, it makes sense.
That's
Like
so cool.
everything
A lot
clicked.
of people don't. A lot of people have to keep getting more and more
Oh, yeah.
confirmation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're a little unusual in the fact, and that's why all our stories are different.
Yeah.
You're a little unusual in the fact because you were like, oh, that's it, I'm gay.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, yeah, I didn't have necessarily the action right behind it, but it was like I can't erase what just happened. Like Pandora's box is open. I now have this knowledge. And I think that's beautiful. I've had clients that have done that where they're like, I'm just not sure. Like maybe what if I get out there and it's not for me? And then and then they'll go and they'll have an experience and then they come back and they're like, "Oh, I'm definitely gay." And I can never go back to men. I'm like, "Yeah." So
Absolutely.
sometimes that
Yeah.
catalyst or that first is just so eye-opening because sometimes we
Mhm.
do have some clients that still have questions and are just still kind of doubting themselves, which is sad, right? Because they're like, oh, I have this sense that I'm gay, but I'm, taught to question myself and
Right.
to not trust myself.
Right.
So that confirmation is beautiful.
And I think that that's really like for me, like this later in life journey. And I love that you use the term later in life as well. Annie and I were talking about that before the podcast. Years ago, it was called late in life lesbian, but both of us started to use the language later in life because it's just later. You're not late.
Yeah.
You're not late to any party. You haven't missed
Yep.
anything. It's just later. And as you can see, Annie's later in life experience was about 30 and mine was at 50. So later can mean any age, whether it's,
Yeah. A later portion of your life after you've already
and
had this experience.
and also we were talking a little bit about it and like how do you define someone that's later, right? Because I always say it's subjective. And I've
Mhm.
had clients as young as 25
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
clients 75. I've had all the ages. And I think one of the things is I think one of the criteria that we talked about before as well is like having a different life beforehand.
Yeah.
Like Annie was a teacher and a mom and was very in a heteronormative community in Texas. I was in a very heteronormative but liberal community in Connecticut.
Mhm.
And it was just what we did. and
Yeah.
and I've had that life and now I have this life. And so I think that's really the determining factor. And it doesn't matter if you've ever been married or not. I have plenty of clients that figure out they're gay, and they've been single or dated their whole life and it just never worked. And they thought
Yeah.
something was wrong with them
Mhm.
because unlike their peers, they weren't pairing off with men and they thought it was all their fault. And it's not, it's just, they were fishing in the wrong pond,
Yes.
basically.
Exactly.
So, um, so I know you recently got married. So did you date for a lot? Because that seems like you came out in 2007, you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the catalyst, that was like 3 to 4 years
Mm-hmm.
with a little pause in the middle. And then after that, I was single for a year and I just raised my kiddo and hung out with friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Experienced living by myself because I really did move from like my mom's into getting
Mm-hmm.
married.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I don't know how to do anything. And I don't know. And, people pleasers a lot of time. We don't know what we like. We don't make decisions for ourselves. So it was the first time doing that. And just, I kind of feel like I missed out on like those college years because I was married and would just go to work and school and straight back home.
Yeah, I missed the college years too.
I know.
Yeah, yeah.
That's another idea where I'm like, how do we create a retreat that is
I just did. It was
right?
like the
Very
college
college
years.
like.
Yeah. Um,
That's
I
beautiful.
have a question for you because you
Yeah.
keep bringing up the word people pleaser.
Yeah.
Can you define that for me? And And both of us keep saying, oh yeah, we're all people pleasers. We're all people. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So some commonalities that I see in my clients and, and coming from myself was
Mhm.
struggling with boundaries. So being unable to say no without feeling a lot of guilt
Mhm.
or sometimes some resentment because you don't have the time, the energy, and the money to do this thing, and yet you
Oh,
say yes.
I have the funniest story about that. My ex-husband had cancer,
Yeah,
and the PTO came to me and asked me to be the treasurer. The last thing I ever wanted to do was be a treasurer of anything.
yeah.
I'm not the money person. I mean, you
Mhm.
should see how I balance my checkbook.
Uh-huh.
That's not me. And I said yes, and I resented it. I was so pissed the whole time.
Yes.
And they did this like little investigation with me because they thought I like was embezzling, and they like found out is I
Oh
was
my
just
god.
buying everything at the local store and not going to Costco, And
Yeah.
then I said, my husband does have cancer, and they were like, oh yeah, you're right.
Oh my
Why I took that
gosh.
on when he had cancer, I have no idea, but
Yeah.
I did, and
Yeah.
probably trying to avoid my feelings around it.
Oh,
And
for
took on some,
sure.
but I get
For
that.
sure.
So a lot of us take on responsibilities that we don't want. And if you have that feeling inside of
Mhm.
being really pissed off about, then you maybe need not to, you need to let go of that. I should have let go of the PTO
Yes.
responsibility, which was 20 years ago, a long time ago.
Yes, one of my
Yeah.
clients, oh, that was so freeing when she let go of PTO or PTA, wherever you're from.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh my gosh." And same thing with she was like, "I'm not gonna do Christmas cards this year." I was like, "Yes."
Yes. Oh, I stopped that a long time ago.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So how about some other things?
Avoiding conflict that we mentioned
Mm-hmm.
earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And also if you're listening, thinking about if is that equal opportunity? Like I avoid conflict with everybody, or is it like, oh, my whoever I'm dating and my kids and my parents? So
And
sometimes
spouse?
people really thrive, yeah, with
Yeah,
spouse.
because I'm not a conflict avoider. So,
Yeah.
but you made it a really good point because yeah, there's probably people that I don't avoid conflict. I mean, like
Mhm.
there's people that like I think for me, it's the people that I feel safest with, I'm willing to risk conflict with.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I used to think, like, why doesn't everyone avoid conflict? Come on. Like, should be an easy answer, and I think what it actually is can I have some healthy communication? And people pleasers usually don't have that, right? We have a lot of fear. People pleasers are praised for loyalty and always being there for everybody and people counting on them. So the idea of having to learn boundaries and possibly upset people when these are the things that they're praised for, and now if they feel like it's if they have boundaries, they're going to be selfish. So
Mhm.
just the fear of boundaries. Marissa Peer, are you familiar?
Mm-mm, I'm not.
She did a wonderful reframe that I've latched onto for life. And it's changing things from hard. So when people are like, boundaries are so hard, it's unfamiliar, right?
Hmm,
Because unfamiliar, we can change to familiar with practice and
right.
seeing that, yeah, it's not that it's hard and it has to be hard forever. Once you practice whatever skill it is, it gets to be easier.
I
And I
love
think,
that.
yeah,
We
yeah,
just did in the group coaching I do, we just did boundaries for about 3 weeks, and people like just drank it in
yeah.
because they've never been told it's okay to say no before.
Hmm.
I have a
Yeah.
funny story. I worked in hospice for 7 years, and I had if you want to see a bunch of codependent people, go see hospice. And anyway, lovely, lovely human beings, truly lovely human beings. But one of my roles as the chaplain was to give the inspiration each morning. And I'll never forget the hospice director when I said, this is what I said, no is an anointed word. And he flipped. Because I basically told her entire staff that it was okay to say
Like,
no when they're asking them to work 24 hours, a
yes.
24-hour shift.
Oh,
And I'll never forget that. But no is an anointed word.
that's a beautiful way
Question
to
for
put that.
you too. So how is codependency and people pleasing related, and how is it not related? Because people really struggle. I remember the first time when I was becoming a chaplain, my CPE supervisor, which is clinical pastoral education, said to me, "Oh, you're codependent," like that. And I was like so offended, because
Mhm.
at that time I understood that I was codependent to the alcohol that my father consumed way too much of in my childhood.
Yeah.
But can you help me and maybe our excuse me, our listeners understand, like, where are codependency and people pleasing the same, and how are they different?
Yeah, that's a great question, and
Mhm,
sometimes one that I even still struggle with, and I
mhm,
think I do lean more towards people pleasing, and I feel like codependent is more clinical.
mhm.
Um, so yeah, I don't even have
I find that a lot of times people who've had any relationship with alcohol in an unhealthy way,
Yeah.
and not as an active user, but somebody who's been affected by it, my clients have found enormous help in Al-Anon. They really have, like, it's really
I
helped
can
them
see that.
tremendously.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I have found that a lot of us in the later in life community often come from chaotic homes, and we become caregivers way too young, so we're
Mhm.
used to taking care of the adults in our life,
Oh, yeah.
and sometimes our friends and family, other people as well. And so it's almost very difficult to let go of that role.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to take care of everybody,
Mm.
because we're so used to doing it. And when we start taking care of ourselves, our people don't like it. And so
Mm.
what do we have to do? We
Yeah, they
have to
are
make
not
them
used to it.
become familiar with the fact that mom or my wife is going to start taking care of herself. I've seen you got married, and you were single for a while, and you recently got married, right? Is that within the
So
last couple of years?
yeah, November, will actually be 13 years we've been together.
Oh, wow. So you've
We
been together
just
a long
we
time.
yeah, we did the babies. It was for my brother's family, so twins, and then another one we bought and built a house. So we did everything, but just kind of out of order, and we were
Hmm.
just enjoying everything. We didn't feel pressured. Like we had some her brother was like, when are y'all gonna get married? And we just kept traveling and doing that stuff. So she did propose in 2021, and I wasn't expecting it just because everything
Hmm.
was just fine. I do remember when uh gay marriage was becoming legalized and it wasn't in Texas yet. And I'm like, I guess we gotta go to Hawaii. Oh no. um, so that's what we did. So back in
For
April,
you.
we went to Hawaii. So the people pleaser dream of I did not people please anybody. We didn't invite anybody. It was just the two of us.
Oh, I
We went
love that.
away, right? Didn't have to plan for people's arrival and everything, or we ordered our outfits off of the internet and they came in the mail and we crossed our fingers that they would work. And then when we came back, we did have like a little party.
Oh, that's
Um,
lovely. That's
yeah, and
lovely.
and it was Sam knows me well, and she knows I am not a dancer. And she
Ah,
booked this amazing Airbnb that just had, like, this 200-foot slide and games, and so it was just food and games and taking pictures
oh,
and
how
playing with
much
everybody.
fun.
It
How
was a
much fun.
blast. It
Though
was a
I'm going to have to give you a demerit on your lesbian card, because you do not like to dance. So, Annie,
No,
I'm going to take
still
it.
working
I'm
on
going to
that.
take it to Mary. Okay, we've got to get going. So tell me, did you have a coming out song?
I I did not, but when I was a teacher and I listened to it again the other day, and it's in um my mood shifter playlist.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If people need a mood shifter playlist of their songs
That's
that
fun.
lift them up.
Mm-hmm.
Brave by Sarah
Oh,
Bareilles.
I love that. She wrote that for someone coming out.
Did she?
Yeah,
I
I
can
saw
totally see it.
her.
If you go back and listen to it, you're like, this is perfect.
Well, yeah, and I saw her at Girls Wanna Weekend with Brandy Carlisle. She was there
Ah,
2 years ago, and she told the story. She wrote it for a guy friend of hers that was coming
mm,
out, and when I was coming out, that was a real popular song. I don't know if
yeah.
it had. I don't know when it was published or put out, but a lot of the people that I came out with at the same time. They really love that. That's a great song. You go
Aw.
back. I love that. I'm going to do a mood shifter too. That's a
Oh
great,
yeah. Oh
yeah.
yeah. And I have a whole series of first graders that have been raised on that song. So hopefully it empowers them with whatever their decisions are
Well,
going.
and it also empowers people our age too,
Oh
because,
yeah.
I mean, there's so many great songs coming out, songs I really love.
Oh
This Is Me from Barnum.
yes.
And I love, my daughter actually sent me, there's on YouTube where they're in rehearsal. And oh my God, I still watch it and cry. It's a great song.
Oh.
Is there a book or a movie that really changed your perspective in life?
The book that I talk to my clients about all the time is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel
Yeah.
Ruiz.
Yep. I love
I was
that
like,
book.
these are the things that some people in my life that don't want to, that are not in a place where they want to grow, that they're struggling with. So it was like, I feel like it was almost like a people pleaser's manual of, okay, be
Okay.
impeccable with your word and
Word.
go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay. Help me remember. Be impeccable with your word.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
good.
uh, don't, oh my gosh. All clients are like saying it, like yelling it right now. Um, uh, it's about not pleasing others. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
What's
Well,
happening to me?
we will write those down in the liner notes. And
Oh my gosh. Don't make assumptions.
yep.
Yeah, don't make assumptions is the third one, and then always do your best, which is
Right.
the fourth one.
Well, it's like when I talk to about, like, so my background is in grief work. I did a lot of grief work.
Yeah.
I talk about how I sort of view sometimes, and you may disagree, or just not, when people open up their marriages, when one of the people is coming out, I akin it to bargaining in the grief process.
Oh yeah, I could
Yeah,
totally see that.
and so, but when I have to go name the five, which is outdated and not, and I really put it in the context in which it was studied by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, which was on dying people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so I put it in that context, and in a way we are dying to a sense of self, and so I feel it's really appropriate for the later in life people. So, but I'll go to name the five, and I'm like, okay.
Yes, but I totally see that in my clients, like the
Yes.
husbands just cycling through that, and like, and some of them it can be confusing because they've learned enough where they might start with acceptance and then
Yes.
they go to bargaining and denial and anger like later on. So it can start
Well,
at any
yeah,
point.
and just like, I mean, there's no path, there's no rhyme or reason to
Yeah.
grief.
Yeah.
It just, you may have like, it's about your queerness. You may have total, like, so for a lot of people, that there will be weeks, months, or excuse me, days, weeks, or months where they're like, yeah, I'm gay, I'm perfectly gay, I'm totally gay, and then all of a sudden they'll be like, maybe I'm not gay. And honestly, occasionally that still crosses my mind. And then very quickly I go, oh, honey, you're not straight. If you've been in a relationship with a woman for 8 years, you're definitely not straight,
Yes.
So, okay. So, how would you describe your life today?
I would describe it as in flow.
I love that.
It is just flowing. We've been really intentional. Um, even going back to the book The Four Agreements, it's one that I uh, s- read with my kiddo at night. I was like, you've got to sink these in now while
Mm-hmm.
you're young. And she's such a confident, able to speak up for herself and advocate, like so amazing. So yeah, um, just flow. It's just beautiful. My kiddo's about to graduate, and then my wife and we both work from home, so we're just going to start traveling around and working from wherever we are. So it just keeps getting better.
I know, that's so exciting. Annie, I just want to tell you how much I admire you and how much I admire all the content you put out there. I'm going to have to follow you on TikTok now because I didn't know you
Come
were on
hang
there.
out.
Well,
We do.
TikTok is like, it's sort of the bane of my social media existence, but I'll grudgingly go over there
Yeah,
and
no,
watch some.
yeah.
I
If it's
know,
if
I know.
it's for you,
It's
it's for
important.
you.
Yeah, I know. I do love all the young masks on there that are very beautiful because I get their content too, and I
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
Right? It's a great way to just see the variety
Mhm.
and just how everyone's different and how they're showing up, and there's so much beautiful things happening over on TikTok. But
Yeah.
I go live at 3 p.m.
Mhm.
Central, Monday through
Mhm.
Friday. So if you ever want to hop on and share your awesomeness with my people, I would
Oh, I
love.
would love to. And I didn't ask you that question. Where can people find you?
So my site is Annie M. Henderson. I've tried to stick to that. So
Yeah, I
Facebook,
have my
Annie
name.
M. Henderson. TikTok, I believe, is also Annie M. Henderson. YouTube, Annie M. Henderson. So
Mhm.
it's Amazon, Annie M. Henderson. So that's what it is. But um I had you had read in my bio something about my latest certification, which I'm
Which is
super.
what is RIM?
So
RIM?
RIM, it stands for Regenerating Images in Memory.
Mhm.
Dr. Deb Sandella, if anyone wants to look up riminstitute.com, but it's a closed eye experience for emotional processing.
Mhm.
It is, and I've been doing it all year, about to be done with that intergenerational certification and just the RIM in general, but it's beautiful, deep work. And it's
Mhm.
anyways, if you, Anne-Marie, ever want to hop on and have a session for free, I would love to see what you think about it.
I would love to do it. And I was like,
Yeah.
I've never heard of it before. So I was
Yeah.
like, I didn't know whether it's pronounced RIM or RIM,
Yeah.
So I know about generational healing and stuff, but I would love to. I'm always open to new modalities.
Oh, for
And
sure.
also, too, as an I have been like therapized up my ass. So it's been 20 years of going in therapy. So now I'm really looking for alternative modalities
Oh, for sure.
because
Yeah.
I really want, I started working with a somatic therapist, but
Mhm.
she moved. She had a baby and moved. So
Mhm.
now I have to find
Mhm.
somebody else. And
Yeah.
so I really want to do that work because I do know that, a lot of trauma exists in my body. And so I'm really curious about that. So I'll be looking you up, girl. All right. It was
Yay.
wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much, Annie. I really appreciate your time today and I appreciate all the amazing work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. You're fantastic.
You've been listening to Coming Out and Beyond LGBTQIA plus stories with Anne-Marie Zanzal. New episodes of the Coming Out and Beyond podcast drop every other Friday. You can tune in at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and at annemariezanzal.com. Be sure to hit subscribe when tuning in so you never miss an episode. And for more resources, articles, videos, and a free downloadable guide for coming out later in life, visit annemariezanzal.com.